Hello again everybody, what is up, it's Ghost here, back again with another video. It is only me and Oscar here today, but there is an explanation behind that. Yes, today of course is Sunday, which is usually the day that GDPodcast goes up. However, we don't have that going up today for several different reasons. Of course, if you're a regular viewer, you all have heard of the situation, I guess we could call it, with GDPodcast and the copyright strike that we got, and the situation about that. So we've been going through it and trying to figure out all the different ways to go around it, and now seemingly it seems to be okay that we can, we seem to be able to upload videos over 15 minutes now. So in the last few days, we've just been trying to sort that out, so that's sort of been pushed to the side. The GD podcast has been pushed to the side. That is actually going to go up tomorrow on Monday, so it's still happening. Don't worry, we're not missing it out this week. It's just going to be delayed by a day. However, the topic for this video is the combination between me and Oscar's top 3 announcements or games that we saw at the Sony press conference at Paris Games Week. So, Oscar, if you want to go and take it away with what our first highlight was.
Indeed. Now, of course, I mean, it's kind of inevitable what one of them on the list would be, of course, considering all the content that we've been covering on it over the past week. But, of course, the Uncharted 4 multiplayer reveal was one of our personal highlights, of course. Being such big Uncharted fans is inevitable that we're going to be very excited for the multiplayer.
Fanboys, I think, is a more accurate description, really, isn't it?
That's potentially the word we were looking for. But no. Obviously, Uncharted 4, great game. We did obviously see the multiplayer reveal. The trailer was only released at the press conference. We also saw later on gameplay, which, of course, did obviously not quite turn the Turner challenge to the positive way it should have been, but nonetheless, obviously the multiplayer was revealed, and obviously the best thing about that, of course, was we got to see all the new additions that Naughty Dog are bringing to the multiplayer. I think Ghost, you've not really had that much of an opinion on, because we haven't really. I mean, most of the videos have been me.
I mean, we're going to. I think we may touch on it tomorrow in GD podcast, but to give a brief opinion, a valid opinion on this, my general feelings towards it, I think, which is also common with many people, is that it's mixed. I do really like some of the things they're putting in here, although there's a lot of things that are definitely very off-putting about it. I think, namely, the things that will make it unbalanced will be the things that I'm worried about. So, like sidekicks, mysticals, I'm not sure what they're going to do with that, but it sounds a lot like kickbacks, which, in my opinion, made Uncharted 3 very much a little bit more unbalanced. The radar also system in it, I didn't see the need to include radar. I mean, it's one of those things that it's okay. It's cool to have in some games. I mean, maybe like The Last of Us and maybe like other multiplayer games. But in the Uncharted multiplayer, in the Uncharted 3 multiplayer, it doesn't seem to be that important. It doesn't seem. It just doesn't strike me as something that's needed. And there's a lot of things and examples of that we saw in this trailer that I personally thought weren't needed. Another example, of course, was the revive system, which I thought was very necessary in The Last of Us because it was a survival game, but not in Uncharted, because Uncharted isn't a survival game. It's an action-adventure game. It's fast-paced, or at least that's what they seem to be wanting to emphasize in the trailers. So there were definitely some things that were a little bit off-putting about it, although what I really did like to see was all the characters back. They seem to use all the characters from all the games, which is another good idea.
Yep.
Continuing that idea from Uncharted 3. And the gameplay also for it, that we could see from it, not the gameplay that was taken down. It seemed to be pretty fluid, and it seems to be, I think it was confirmed that it's running at 900p 60 frames per second, so the 60 frames per second obviously is the more important part about that. So
yeah. I mean, I covered this slightly in the videos that we've been making, but like I think I may have said it on Twitter as well, actually. But for a shooter that is a multiplayer shooter, it's far better to have the 60 frames per second than it is to have the 30 frames. So, I mean, you see it with COD and Battlefield, like both of those games. I don't know about COD, actually. I think that might run at 1080p, but I know for a fact that Battlefield and Battlefront, which both run at 6900. So, it's always good to have that kind of 60 frames per second for a multiplayer shooter. Even if it isn't the most hardcore of shooters, I think you'd probably agree that Uncharted is not like, it has a relatively small fan base in terms of its multiplayer.
I think it's generally well received, but the community isn't anything comparable to like the game sales. Like the games sell quite well. I mean, like similar amounts to Call of Duty, for example, but the multiplayer like base is just nowhere near that size.
Yeah.
And that's obvious because people don't buy Uncharted for the multiplayer. At least most people don't. Most people buy it for the campaign. So,
yeah, definitely. That makes
sense.
Of course, we're going on to the second one that is our biggest announcements from the Paris Games Week. And, Ghost, you can go ahead with the second one, of course.
I will.
The first one.
I will go ahead. The next one that we thought would be a pretty obvious one was actually virtual reality. Now, before the conference happened, I wouldn't have probably predicted that I'd be saying this after it, that virtual reality was one of the highlights of the conference. But they definitely showed a lot of promise in PlayStation VR. I mean, they seem to be putting a lot of emphasis into it, and it doesn't seem to be something that they're doing like a sort of half-assed job of it. They seem to be putting a lot of effort into trying to bring out as many games for this as possible. So some of the games they announced, of course, Riggs, which is sort of that. I don't really know how to explain it. I mean, it's sort of comparable to Rocket League.
Rocket League with guns.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, and so that seemed to be fairly interesting. It seemed to be quite fun. They seem to be aiming for the similar feel to Rocket League also with that, so that seemed pretty good.
Yep.
Until Dawn, Rush of Blood's also something that I would really would be terrified playing.
I would never play it, but
but it's something that I think I'd still enjoy playing because it's virtual reality and it's horror. It's just like the two best things in terms of atmosphere and intensity.
Yeah, I think horror games will be the main focus for virtual reality.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah,
you've already seen it. I think there's some of the tech demos, which I think it was like the one where you're in a cage and there's like a shark attacking you. It's like Jesus, like. You'd be literally shitting yourself most of the time. So to see virtual reality like that is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it makes it so much more intense. And I think those sorts of experiences are the things that Sony and also the other companies, such as Oculus Rift and that sort of stuff, need to emphasize. It's these sorts of experiences that you can't get in other games. Because if you're just playing a game but with a visor on, people won't buy into it. They need to buy into an experience that you can only experience with the virtual reality. Other games they had, Robinson the Journey from Crytek.
That was good. I like that.
That looked alright, yeah, that did look quite good. Battlezone, The Walk, which was that one like tightrope walking, which seemed pretty damn scary. They also announced that there was 200 developers working on virtual reality. They also announced Tekken 7, of course. Then they showed another whole trailer full of virtual reality with games like The London Heist, Valkyrie, Megatron Rainfall, blah blah blah. There was just so much announced in terms of virtual reality.
So okay, we'll move on to the third one, of course. Our final kind of big announcement, our biggest kind of I suppose announcement from the PlayStation conference at Paris Games Week, of course, and that is of course the final announcement at that conference, which of course was Detroit Become Human by Quantic Dream, of course, the guys behind Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls. Now, this is interesting because they didn't really... I mean, they showed, like, I think it was about a 2 to 3 minute trailer for it. And we know, obviously, it's all around this character of Kara, who was originally some kind of tech demo that they showed off or something about 2012 time. It's all kind of all over the place, really. I mean, no one really knows specifically what it is yet. It's kind of this idea that she's an android and she wants to become human, suggesting from the title, I'd assume. But, yeah, David Cage came onto the... David Cage, whoever the fuck knows, he's French. But he came onto the stage. He pretty much said, like, yeah, here's the new game. We've been kind of thinking this is the best place to set it in. He said that Detroit was a very, very good city to set it in. So, I mean, other than that, it's really, really difficult to tell what the game is. I mean, it was just basically, I think it was a CGI trailer. It could be in-game. I could be wrong with that. But
it said using the game engine, didn't it?
Yeah, well,
I think at the end of it, we were like, oh, this can't be gameplay. It just looks like CGI. But then they said it was using the in-game engine, so not gameplay as such, obviously. But I guess it can give us a rough idea of what it could look like, although... you never really know what developers mean when they say that. They often sort of bend the definitions of gameplay a lot of the time. But yeah, I mean, I think it looks interesting. But I can't really give an opinion on whether I'm looking forward to it or not because, well, we don't really know enough about it.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all of the announcements. Really, again, we look forward to seeing all these things come to kind of PlayStation life, I suppose, over the next few years. Particularly, obviously, Uncharted and PlayStation VR. Those two in particular, I'm really, really hyped to see what they're going to turn out to be like. But obviously, we would like to know what you guys think. What were the best announcements from the PlayStation Experience? I keep saying PlayStation Experience. God damn it! It was the PlayStation Conference at Paris Games Week. There's too many little things you need to add on to this. But of course, let us know that in the comments. And yeah, we'd like to thank you a lot for watching and banter.